Hi everyone, it's Chrissie and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a couple of really exciting videos. So yes, I have been keeping a little bit of a secret the past couple of months. I actually got the chance to build 3 lots for the Sims 4 Horse Ranch expansion pack. Now this video isn't sponsored at all. I wasn't paid to make this video or any videos about this pack, but I was paid to make the builds that I did for the pack. So yeah, so I'm not sure in which order I'm posting these videos in because like I said, I did get the chance to build 3 different lots. I built a starter home, a dance hall, as well as a residential home for one of the pre-existing families. Now, I have no idea in which order I'm posting these videos in, so yeah, I haven't decided that yet. But with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump on into the speed build and talk a little bit more about this whole process and the build itself. Okay, so here we are with our first build, or I don't know why I'm saying first build, because like I said in the intro, I have no idea what order you guys are seeing these videos in, but this is the first one that I'm doing a voiceover for. So this is one of the first lots that I actually started working on as well. This is the huge 50 by 50 starter home lot. Now, as you guys know, if you're familiar with building starter homes, using a 50 by 50 lot for them isn't usually advised because you have to work with a very strict budget when you're building a starter home, obviously, and 50 by 50 lots tend to not only obviously have a lot of space that you kind of feel the need to fill with stuff, but they're also very expensive. They're a lot more expensive than like a 15 by 20 lot, for example. So for this build, I honestly, a lot of it was very much a struggle, but it was one of those things where you struggle with something, but there's also a part of you that kind of enjoys the challenge, and it's kind of fun trying to figure out how to make it work. It's like a little puzzle that you have to put together. So for these builds, obviously they are supposed to be a little bit more restricted than my regular builds are, going to be. So, for example, I wasn't allowed to use any cheats. So, no move objects at all. No, free rotation. So, I couldn't hold down the Alt key on my keyboard and, freely rotate stuff. I couldn't freely place items. I also couldn't use the debug or the show live edit objects menu, which, if you guys have been on my channel for a while, you know that when I do starter homes, I tend to rely super heavily on debug and live edit just to make it not feel like a starter. So usually I would, spend my budget on the actual house, and then I would use live edit to landscape the build and maybe add a fence or, stuff like that, because those items are free. So for this build, I wasn't able to do that. So I'm actually working with the starter budget for one sim only. So this lot, I believe, turned out to be around 19,000 something simoleons in the final product. But yeah, I mean, trying to build a starter home on a 50 by 50, especially with a single sim budget, was a struggle. Now, am I happy with how this build turned out? Definitely. I am really happy with how it turned out, even though it was a struggle, even though I probably don't ever want to do something like this. I don't ever want to build a starter home on a 50 by 50 without debug ever again. Honestly, I think it made me age 15 years or something. But it was a really fun process. Now, the whole process of doing this build, like I said, was a struggle. So you will see me changing the actual house so much. I did have to cut out a lot of footage that I had recorded because, like I said, a lot of it was me just changing it so many times, because the way that these I guess projects work when you build for the Sims, you build for a pack, is you basically get a separate version of the game. that only has the base game and the new pack, and that build of the game basically isn't done. So right now, when I just started this build, I didn't have access to all of the objects. A lot of the objects, most of the objects, their prices weren't even final, so I had no idea what they were actually going to cost in the end. So doing anything on a budget is really difficult because obviously you don't know what they're going to cost. I didn't have the new kitchen counters. None of that stuff. There were so many things that I didn't have access to at the beginning because they just weren't done yet. So the way that this works is you get the build and you start building. You start figuring out, the basics, like what's the shape of it gonna be, where is it gonna be, how big, and like general layout and stuff like that. And then basically you submit your build, they give you feedback and tell you, oh, maybe this would work better, or maybe you could use this item or this color, or usually this kind of wallpaper wouldn't be in a house like this. So with this one, for example, I end up going for this kind of like wood log cabin type wallpaper on the exterior in the end. It's actually called Junction, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And something that I found out in the process of doing this is that when you have a house that has that kind of texture on the outside, that chinking texture, then they would most likely always have that same texture on the inside. So you wouldn't have that on the outside and then on the inside on the same wall have like a stone wall, for example, or a different kind of like wallpaper or something. You would usually have the exact same texture on the inside as well, because in real life that texture is literally what the wall is made up of. It's not something that someone has gone, they've plastered over a wall and painted it, or like a random superficial decorative thing that they've added. It's physically what the wall is made out of. So finding out stuff like that is stuff that they would tell us in the feedback. So a lot of this build is going to be me doing something, and then there's going to be a cut, and then I'm going to come back and it's either already going to be changed, or you will see me completely delete the entire thing, as I think already have done with this build. Like, I think I already bulldozed or like deleted an entire first draft of this starter home. And I did that so much with the landscaping as well. Trying to landscape this lot was a whole struggle in and of itself. Not only because it's so big, but also because obviously I couldn't use debug. So I had to use the budget that I had for plants. And plants in The Sims 4 are expensive, especially if you have this much space that you want to fill. So I didn't want the lot to be super empty either. So I wanted to have stuff on it. I wanted to have those horse items, like the training obstacles. I wanted to have a little like kind of stable, almost-ish, like open stable thing for your horse to sleep under, where they would have cover. If, for example, you had seasons, I wanted them to have somewhere under cover where they could sleep and where their food would be, and, stuff like that. And that all came out of my budget. So also trying to make it fit in with the world around it was a struggle, because we don't really have any plants in the game that fits this kind of world, or at least we don't in the regular menu. We have them in debug, like I said, but I couldn't use that. So later on in the speed build, you will actually notice that I start pulling out plants that look like they actually fit in with the surroundings. And that is because the Sims team actually took my feedback on board as well, when I told them like, hey guys, I can't really make this fit in because I don't have plants that fits the world. So for example, these trees that I'm using right now, they're very similar to the ones that we have in the surroundings, but they're a lot greener. So we don't have that kind of more brown yellowish tree in the regular catalog. So later on they actually added that. They actually added those trees. They added some of those dead, white trees. They added some grasses and stuff, and even some rock formations to the regular catalog, so that I could use them and so that you guys could use them for builds, especially in this neighborhood, but also in the other neighborhoods. So that was really, really cool. This was such an amazing process because the whole idea of this lot, for example, was that it would be almost like an oasis in this very like open, expansive neighborhood. This is in the Galloping Gulch area of the world, where it's basically like a national park. This is where you would come with your horse to ride along the trails, to explore, to like go into the Dead Horse Caverns, which is a really cool like rabbit hole cave system that your Sims can go in, where there's like 100 different levels. So it's a rabbit hole, so you can't see into it, but the pop-ups for it are really, really cool, and like all of that stuff. So it's a very like, you know, you'd come here with your horse for a day or two to, I don't know, maybe camp out or something. And obviously, because this is a starter home, you could also start your gameplay here with just one sim or a sim and a horse or whatever, and they would have a cute little home to go back to at the end of the day. But the idea was that this lot would be like a little bit of an oasis in this big expansive neighborhood. So the Sims team, like, they wanted it to be as green as possible without obviously feeling out of place. But that meant that I needed to add, you know, green stuff. I couldn't just leave the whole lot blank and covered in dirt and leave it at that, for example. So I wanted to make it green. I wanted to also bring in some green with the terrain paint that I end up going for in the end, because this area has a lot of water in it. Even though, yes, it's a very deserty kind of world, it's very similar to Strangeville in that sense, but it's also different in the sense that there's a lot of water. If you guys have seen my world overview, you will know this, but there's a lot of streams and rivers and stuff like that in this world. So I wanted to make it kind of fit with that, so I ended up adding a little pond in the front. And I did originally put a couple of crocodiles in that pond, I will admit, just as a little bit of a joke. I did delete them in the final product, so don't worry. You can always add them back if you want to. But yeah, we have a little pond. I used a couple of like green terrain paints that we have that made it look a little bit more lush, a little bit more like, you know, some areas of this place do get water a little bit more often. So there is a little bit of green, especially around the pond. So yeah, the landscaping that you see me do right now basically all goes away in the end. This is just one of my first takes at, you know, trying to make it look a little bit more lush, a little bit more green, and then at the end I will go back in and change it up a little bit more. But yeah, so there's a lot of like chopping and changing and, you know, all of that kind of stuff that goes into this build. I mean, I absolutely love this fireplace, for example. You will have seen me use a couple of different fireplaces in the course of doing this build, but that was because we didn't have that big one originally. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't use it until the very end. So yeah, I loved putting that in. It gives this whole place a very cute rustic log cabin kind of vibe. And in my opinion, you could really easily turn this lot into a rental as well. If you don't necessarily want your Sims to come and live here, if you maybe want them to use this space as a rental to, I don't know, maybe they live in a bigger world or something like that, and they want to use this as a little bit of a retreat from maybe like a city or from like Willow Creek or whatever, then you could totally do that, and you could totally use it like that. You could even turn it into maybe like a generic lot, or add some park items, turn it into a park if you actually want it to be a like community space rather than somewhere where a single sim would live. But yeah, I mean, I just furnished it as a starter home. I have space for 2 sims, a horse, you know, everything that you could possibly need. I tried to keep it as like generic as possible as well, obviously, to, you know, make it so that you could have anyone living here. But yeah, so this is the spot where we actually got the new terrain paints. So we do have 4 new terrain paints. We have 2 grass textures and then 2 new like dirt textures, dirt and soil textures that I ended up using. And this is also where we got the new plants added as well. So you will see me go around a little bit and add those, but I do think I cut out most of it because yeah, a lot of it was me chopping, changing, trying to figure out what would work, what wouldn't work, you know, all of that stuff. So yeah, a lot of this footage, like I said in the intro, all of the footage actually is not final software, and I have already seen some of my builds in the regular game at this point, and they do look a little bit different from the end version that you guys are going to be seeing in this video. So I do have a tour coming up in just a couple of minutes when we get to the end of this video, but that basically was recorded months ago, like just after I had finished with these builds and I like handed the final version off to the Sims team. I recorded those tours. I recorded one for each of the 3 builds that I did, and that is basically past Chrissie. So you guys are going to be seeing me from, like, I believe, I mean, it was quite a few months ago. I can't even remember when it was, but it was past Chrissie. So yeah, that is the version of me that you're going to be seeing for the tour. And like I think I mentioned in the tour as well, like, obviously that's just the version of the build the way I had it when I was done with it. The Sims team probably went in, and I know that they did go in and change up a couple of things. I think they deleted some things and, you know, just did some performance changes to make it like run better on all like different kinds of machines and all of that stuff. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. So with all of that said, we're almost done. I'm just going to be adding a couple more things on the interior. At this point still, I wasn't sure about the budget 100%. So yeah, a couple of these things are going to be going away, and I think I added 1 or 2 things like before I did the tour at the end as well. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. But with all of that said, yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of landscaping. I've forgotten what order I did this whole thing in, by the way. So yeah, this is where I did a little bit of more of the landscaping around the pond, especially because I wanted the pond to be as lush and green as possible without it like being completely out of place, if that makes sense. So yeah, with all of that said, for the final time, yikes, I think I'm done basically with this voiceover. So I'm gonna hand you guys off to past Chrissie. We're gonna do a little bit of a tour, and then I'm gonna do the outro. So it's a very convoluted video, but yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and let's go into the tour, shall we? Hi everyone. So yes, we're doing another tour for one of the builds that I did for the new Sims 4 expansion pack, and I am so excited to share this one with you guys because yeah, this is going to be for the starter home that I built for the pack. And as you could probably tell from the future version of me that you just saw in the voiceover for that build, or for this build, it was a bit of a struggle. It was definitely not something that was easy to me. It's probably the hardest starter home that I have ever had to build, and I've built quite a few starter homes. But yeah, this build has its own set of challenges, which I'm sure I will have gone over in the voiceover, because obviously I'm recording this, as you can see, a couple of months before you're actually seeing the video. So the version of me that you're seeing in the speed build voiceover, it's a couple of months ahead from now. So yeah, I'm recording this quite a bit in advance. But yeah, so we're gonna jump into the game and have a look at the starter home. But also, before I forget, I forgot to mention this in one of my other videos, but we currently have construction going on like that side with our neighbors. They're doing some construction or something, and there's a bunch of hammering and grinding, and it's very loud. It's been like this for like 2 weeks and it's driving me nuts. But I'm recording this like at daytime, like I'm recording this in the afternoon, so they're still here, they're still making noise, and I'm really hoping that the mic isn't picking them up. But if you hear any banging or stuff like that in these tour videos, I really am sorry, but there's nothing I can do about it apart from like being a nuisance and telling them to stop it, which wouldn't even work. So yeah, just a little heads up. But yeah, let's jump into the game. Let's take a look at this starter home. So yeah, this is the starter home that I sent off to EA. This is what I imagined it to look like. Now obviously it's not the final version. It's also not the final version of the world as well, or like anything that you're seeing. But I don't know if they're going to have to make any changes to the starter, or, you know, delete stuff, move stuff, you know, anything like that, obviously. But this is the build that I handed off to them. I don't know if it's going to look different from the one that you guys are going to be seeing in the game if you buy the pack, but yeah, this is what we're working with. And as you could see from this like speed build, it took me a while to get to this point. It was not easy. It's really difficult. I'm gonna sound like a broken record probably, because I'll probably harp on about this a lot in the voiceover. But building without move objects is such a struggle. I mean, I can do it without move objects. I've done builds without move objects. I've been building in The Sims 4 since it came out, and at the beginning we didn't have move objects. The game didn't have it. So I can build without move objects, but building without alt placement was so hard. We could use F5, so like water tile placement, but we couldn't like freely rotate stuff. So I couldn't go in and, for example, decide that, oh, I want these grasses to be, you know, rotated a little bit more like that. You know, I couldn't do that. They had to snap to, you know, the regular placement, so like 45-degree angles and quarter tile placement. I couldn't go in and move stuff freely, which drove me nuts. It was so hard. But yeah, I managed it. I managed to work around it. And then another thing is that this lot is a 50 by 50 lot. It's a 50 by 50 lot. It's insane. Building a starter home on this was so hard because the lot is like, I think 6k or something. So you only have like 14 or something like that k left over to build the house, and you have a lot of house that you need to build. So obviously I couldn't use debug, I couldn't use live edit, so I couldn't use any of the free landscaping that I would usually rely on when I'm doing a starter home. So when I'm doing a normal starter, I'll spend all of the money on the house and like activities and stuff, and then I'll landscape with debug because it's free. So I can go overboard with landscaping without spending more money. But for this, obviously, I couldn't do that. So all of these plants, they actually went ahead and they added a couple of plants to the game, because I don't know, I don't think they were planning on doing this from the beginning. So I do think it's because I had such a hard time with this lot. But I started this lot, as you could have seen from the speed build, with completely different landscaping, because obviously we only have the base game and the new pack, and trying to find landscaping that like fit with this stuff. Like, there's a lot of plants in the debug menu for the base game that actually fit. You know, these trees are in debug, all of these trees are in debug, all of these green trees, but I couldn't use them. So I could only use the in catalog ones that were already there, and none of them matched. So even, you know, all of these landscaping items, we have nothing like this in the regular catalog. We have these green flowers, but we don't have any of the other, like, you know, vegetation and plant life in the regular catalog. So I couldn't make any of the landscaping match the surroundings. And they really wanted this lot to look a little bit more lush. They wanted it to look like, you know, a little bit of an oasis in this, like, you know, national park area, which is a little bit more arid. It's kind of like a, I don't know exactly what you would call this, if it's like a plateau or a canyon or whatever, but they wanted it to look a little bit more like an oasis. So they wanted it to look like, you know, like a little old cabin starter, which suited me just fine. It was a lot of fun building this. And then also they wanted to make it look like, you know, there's been horses and stuff coming through here, because obviously this neighborhood is meant to be for, you know, your Sims to come with their horses. There's a ton of open space. Like, this area of the world is huge. Now obviously what you're seeing isn't final, so, you know, it's not done yet, but this area is absolutely gigantic, and there's a ton of space for you to ride your horse, to gallop around. There's also a bunch of obstacles, you know, throughout the world, so your horse can, you know, do training for stuff like that, barrel racing, jumping, you know, everything. And they wanted this lot to kind of look like, you know, there's been a couple of horses, you know, going through here, like on trails, or, you know, they also wanted it to have a couple of horse items as well. So we actually have, if you come up to the front of the house, this is the front of it, obviously. But you have a little pond over here that I thought would be really, really cute. You know, maybe your Sims can go fishing or stuff like that if you put down one of those debug fishing signs, which I obviously couldn't do, but, you know, we have that you can do. We also have obviously a bunch of landscaping that they added in so that I could make it match in a little bit better, which I'm very grateful for. We also got a couple of terrain paints that they added in to make it easier to blend our lots to the world. But yeah, at the front we have a little fire pit with some chairs. We have on the little porch, we actually have a little rocking chair as well. So your Sims can sit there, you know, look out over their, you know, pond and whatever. And then coming into the cabin, we have these big doors over to the left, not to the left, to the right. We have a little tiny kitchen, so just a very small kitchen for your Sims. We also have to the left a little dining space, a big new fireplace, because obviously it's a cabin. And I thought, you know, with it being a cabin, they probably wouldn't have stuff like a central, you know, central heating or, you know, aircon or whatever. So in the winter, even though it is a little bit more of an arid kind of environment, it probably still gets very cold in the winter if you have seasons. So I figured, you know, having a big fireplace definitely made sense. We have just a tiny little living space, some books, a little like old school radio, which is so cool. No TV, because it just, honestly, it didn't fit. It didn't fit the vibe of like a really old cabin. And it's not even an inhabited lot when you start a new save. Obviously, I have a sim here at the moment, but it's supposed to be a starter home, so it's going to be empty. And I figured, you know, it just didn't make sense to have a TV in the middle of nowhere in a really old log cabin. So yeah, I tried to keep it a little bit more, I guess, low tech, you could say. So yeah, we have a little radio over there. To, you know, through this door at the back, we have just a tiny little bathroom, you know, bog standard, cheap appliances. I did remember the toilet paper though. But yeah, so we have the new shower, new sink, toilet. That's it. Very basic. I love these wooden floorboards though. That's new with the pack. They're absolutely stunning. As well as obviously, you know, all of these new wallpapers. This chinking wallpaper was such a cool thing, and also I learned a lot when it came to that, which I probably will have mentioned in this voiceover. But yeah, over to this side. By the kitchen though, I do want to mention I did put in a fire alarm. I did remember that, so we do have that. But yeah, which is probably a good thing in a solid wooden cabin, which, you know, having a fire alarm to avoid fires, probably a good idea. But yeah, over here in the bedroom, we have a nice double bed, so space for two Sims, a little closet, or like, I guess, open closet wardrobe thing. And then just one little bedside table, some artwork on the wall, and that's it. So that's basically the entire house. Now, I do want to point out the, like, foundation that I'm using here is just a placeholder. We're getting a new one with the pack that just isn't in the game yet. So, you know, that will be replaced with the pack one. But yeah, so that's basically the whole house. That's a really tiny house on this really giant horse items. So like horse, you know, obstacle items for jumping, for barrel racing. And then I also built this cute little, like, not really stable, but like underground shelter for your horses. So they have a little horse bed as well as a feeder. And then that is basically it. So the other thing that I wanted to mention that I don't think I mentioned in my previous like tour video is the fact, or I don't know in which order I'm posting these, by the way, but I didn't mention it in the dance hall one. But as you can probably see, you know, this is all fairly normal looking. But if you go into tab or just, you know, move the camera down, you will see that we actually have painted ceilings. I feel like I said that very weirdly, but we have painted ceilings. Like, hold your applause, but I know all of us, all four of us, when we saw this, when they told us about this, we lost our minds. Like, this is incredible. This is something Simmers have been asking for The Sims 4 for years. And this is absolutely freaking fantastic. Now, this is just the texture that I used in this build. I made sure to put it, you know, the same texture throughout all of the rooms so that it matches. But you can put anything up there. You can put anything on the ceiling that you want. They do give you a couple of fairly like ceiling textures that kind of make sense in the pack, you know, like those wooden beams. But you can put anything up there and it's absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to see what people do with it. And I can't wait to go through and just paint ceilings in all of my builds, because it's such an amazing feature. But yeah, so that is the little starter home, and I'm gonna hand you back to future Chrissie for the outro. Okay, so that was the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was probably very rambly, but I am so excited. I like have no chill at this moment, like no chill at all. I am completely freaking out, and I'm so excited to be able to finally share these videos with you guys. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give the video a like. If you're new to the channel and you would like to see some more Sims content, feel free to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell as well to be notified of whenever I upload a new video. But I hope you're all having a great day. I hope you enjoyed the build. Like I said, let me know your thoughts on it as well. And if you do end up playing with any of my builds, then definitely tag me in pictures. Tag me in pictures over on Twitter. I'm on Threads as well now, so I will have my Threads link down below. If you use Threads, if you post stuff on there, feel free to tag me in it. We also have our Discord as well, which is always linked below. So if you guys want to go ahead, join our Discord. It's completely free as well. Join the Discord, share some of your pictures with me, some of your gameplay or builds or anything like that. I would love to see it. But I hope you're all having a great day, and I will talk to you in my very next video. Bye everyone.